it's so stupid for like everybody because of this whole like, you know, like minorities in Hollywood thing. Like, stop stealing, you know, all the white people's superheroes. Like, make up your own, you know what I'm saying?
Nerdrotic.com.
Welcome you over 754,000 practitioners of common sense and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. It's time for an episode of This Week in Race Swapping. In this episode, we learn the truth about Cleopatra. Little Mermaid doesn't have any legs. Some guy is calling himself Aragorn, and the Rings of Power doesn't want to miss this party. And yes, they all have something in common, and I'm sure you can guess. We'll start with Queen Cleopatra, a documentary that sets out to prove professors, scholars, archaeologists, and Egyptologists wrong, and it turns out the one person who could find the truth about Cleopatra was Jada Pinkett Smith.
NANI?
F*** that shit. According to Will Smith's wife, Cleopatra was black, completely ignoring all of the professors, scholars, archaeologists, Egyptologists, peer-reviewed literature and art that says otherwise. The justification for such an arbitrary race swap? Well, we really didn't know, or my grandma told me.
I remember my grandmother saying to me, I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra was black.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
Except we actually get the truth from the director of the series. Doing the research, I realized what a political act it would be to see Cleopatra portrayed by a black actress. It may come as no surprise that the Netflix adaptation to end all Netflix adaptations, or at least it should be, because now we have art imitating memes, was received with a resounding 20% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 3% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes that admittedly went up from 1%. But it was all worth it because Netflix and woke Hollywood is not going to miss a single opportunity to call all of you, the potential paying customer and paying customer, racist. This brings us to The Little Mermaid, which is just the latest in a very long list of Disney animated films being remade in live action, adding itself to another very long list, a ginger being race swapped, which led to the inevitable backlash and the inevitable accusations of racism. Fan attack articles were written, trailers were ratioed on YouTube. Then we learned of the $200 million budget for this film, the potential $800 to $100 million spent on marketing, and the 2-hour and 20-minute runtime. The House of Mouse really needed their remake of The Little Mermaid to be a big hit, but unfortunately for Disney, the film was released. Remember back in 2019, the media narrative surrounding the Joker and its lead up to its release, that it would incite incel violence? I had to walk into a metal detector to get into that film and nothing happened, but it turns out going to The Little Mermaid is far more dangerous. All this over a Little Mermaid remake that turned out to be exactly what we thought it was going to be. A soulless, creatively bankrupt cash grab that ends up stretching out the plot from the original into unwatchable garbage that ends up passing the Bechdel test. Two of the biggest changes, Ariel not knowing she has to kiss Prince Eric within 3 days, and she ends up saving herself at the end because we wouldn't want to remove her agency. A staple of intersectional feminist storytelling. The Access Media says it's a hit, except for where it's not. While its opening weekend here in the States did a little lower than expected, it's still doing okay, but internationally, it's abysmal. And what's Disney's excuse? You guessed it, review bombing because of racism. Apparently, the international racists would rather see Fast X than The Little Mermaid remake. Deadline says The Little Mermaid splashes to a $164 million global bow, but there's something fishy overseas as Disney pick is beset by review bombing in places like Korea. The verified audience score, which requires you jumping through quite a few hoops, is at 95%, but if you go to the all audience score, it's at 56%, which is much more in line with what Metacritic says, which is at an abysmal 2.1, and IMDb isn't even hiding that they're protecting this film, which currently has the soulless Disney remake sitting at a 7 out of 10, or is it? Unusual activity. Our rating mechanism has detected unusual voting activity on this title. To preserve the reliability of our rating system, an alternate weighting calculation has been applied. We Rings of Power critics are very familiar with the reliability of your rating system. But if you go to the bottom, to the fine print, you'll see that The Little Mermaid's actually sitting at a 4.7. Is it getting review bomb from both sides? Of course it is. This is what happens when you get involved in the culture war and cast characters as a political act. But we all know Disney doesn't want to pass up an opportunity to call the audience racist. Not to be outdone, here comes Grand Wizards of the Coast. A year ago, they announced Black Aragorn for their new Lord of the Rings collectible card game because WOC thought it was a good idea to take on the one fandom that actually fought back and destroyed the most expensive show ever made, Rings of Power, produced by one of the richest companies in the world, Amazon. That's the way you want to play it, Wizards of the Coast. Let's do this. Now, many people have already brought this up, and now it's my turn, but instead of hearing it from me, we're going to hear it from Robert Inglis. Straight from the source, J.R.R. Tolkien.
As Frodo drew near, he threw back his hood, showed a shaggy head of dark hair flecked with grey, and in a pale, stern face a pair of keen grey eyes. I'm called Strider.
That absolutely settles any mythological argument anyone may have from some race-baiting activist marketing department or some disingenuous fake geek from the Access Media. But hey, don't let me stop you. Honestly, it's been one of my favorite pastimes watching the Tolkien fandom bitch slap you. But again, Wizards of the Coast doesn't want to miss an opportunity to call any current or potential paying customers racist. Not to be left out, here comes Amazon, who for some inexplicable reason thinks it's a good idea to make the Rings of Power Season 2, and for some inexplicable reason thinks it's a good idea to continually attack the fans. From Variety, Rings of Power star Ismael Cruz Cordova says Amazon hired an on-set therapist to deal with racist backlash. My first question is, why is Amazon hiring so many racists? And because Amazon appears to want to usurp the fan-baiting throne from Disney, they go ahead and pull a Moses Ingram. Ismael claims he's been threatened, some pretty horrible insults have been hurled at him online, his PayPal and bank have been hacked, but unlike Moses Ingram, he didn't provide any receipts. Obviously, death threats and anything else is pretty horrible, but I also wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility, call it my cynical mind, that some garden variety online insults were, say, over-exaggerated by a PR firm to garner free press and gaslight fans. But that would never happen because we know Hollywood is known for their authenticity. And as far as therapy is concerned, there's nothing wrong with it. I've had plenty and it's helped, and I would understand why you need it on that set. I mean, it caught on fire, your show killed a horse, you read the scripts for season 2, hell, I needed it for watching season 1. Black Cleopatra, Black Little Mermaid, Black Aragorn, Black Tolkien elves. What do all of these things have in common? You guessed it, fan baiting. Using someone's ethnicity to own your enemies as a political act. From Dr. Thala Sarin's Twitter thread back in September of 2022, fan baiting is a form of marketing used by producers, film studios, and actors with the intent of exciting artificial controversy, garnering publicity, and explaining away the negative reviews of a new or often highly anticipated production. Fan baiting emerged as a marketing strategy in 2016 and 17 after fans of a beloved franchise such as Ghostbusters and Star Wars objected to what they saw as poor writing choices, sloppy scripts, and cheap alterations to plot lines and characters for the sake of shock value. These decisions come straight from the top. It's strategic and it's specific. Amazingly enough, you don't see controversies like this with recent films like Fast X or Creed 3. If you want me as a Lord of the Rings fan to watch your Lord of the Rings movie or book with Aragorn in it, then Aragorn better look like Aragorn. No, I wouldn't be happy with a Latino Aragorn, or an Asian Aragorn, or a blonde-haired Aragorn. Hell, one of the biggest problems I had with Daniel Craig's James Bond is he was blonde, when Ian Fleming specifically said he had black hair. Woke washing is real, and it's killing storytelling, and it's clear people are sick to death of it. Now, before I go, there's a very important issue I'd like to discuss. There is a very large group of people who are no longer being seen. They are being erased by the industrial entertainment complex. Yes, we're talking about gingers. Sure, they don't have a soul. And the women are a bit crazy.
God, don't ever leave me.
Ever.
Good. Because I'd find you.
But they're still people, and they deserve to be heard. Hashtag Stop Gingercide. Thank you.
Nerdrotic.com.